Welcome to WT Tone.
Hello.
In this video, we're going to talk about this amp. This is a Dr. Z Z-Rec. It is a collaboration between three people. Dr. Z, Ken Fischer, who's no longer with us, of Trainwreck Amplifiers, and Brad Paisley. This is one of the most expensive AC30 type amps you can buy currently in production.
I can't think of anything else.
Is it worth it? We'll find out. Also, we have made presets, patches, captures, profiles of this amp. They're available for Line 6 hardware, Fractal hardware, Kemper, Quad Cortex, whenever the marketplace opens. All that is linked below. That's not what this video is about. This is about amps and cabs and tubes and microphones and preamps.
But before we get started, make sure you subscribed, please. The plan, the goal, our desire on this channel is to showcase amps that we make other content for and patches and the like, and give them videos just like this. So make sure you ring the bell too. And if you have not, check out our main channel, Worship Tutorials.
The Dr. Z Z-Rec is a collaboration between three different individuals coming together to create one beautiful sounding amplifier. Obviously, it's Dr. Z. That's who builds it. The rec that you get in the name comes from Ken Fischer. Ken Fischer built Trainwreck amplifiers. Ken Fischer is no longer with us, although the Trainwreck amp line continues. The original Fischer-built Trainwrecks they're like dumbbells. Those things are like unobtainium. The other person in this collaboration is Brad Paisley. So this is kind of like an artist's amp for Brad Paisley. Brad Paisley has worked with Dr. Z to build multiple different amplifiers. He says, I'm going to quote Brad Paisley, he plays Desert Island with amps, though he has to have two amps. That's what he said. And the Z-Rec is one. So I'm going to link below to a Sweetwater video with Brad Paisley featuring Z-Rec amps. He talks a lot about the origin of the Z-Rec. That's linked below. It's worth watching. It's a cool video. Brad Paisley, monster player. So Brad Paisley famously, I'm going to very quickly paraphrase what he talked about in that video, famously played and he still owns it, a 1963 Vox AC30. That's his sound. He said he would go on tour with just that amp. No backup. That's bold. That's a bold move, Nick. Is bold the right word?
Yes.
So he got to a point where he wanted something that wouldn't, potentially go up in flames and never be played again. Something a little more roadworthy, bulletproof. He said that he could never find an amp that gave him that tone, and they plugged into a Dr. Z at a music shop somewhere. I can't even remember the amp model he used, but it was the sound he was looking for. So he started playing it, and then he and Dr. Z got together to, and as well as with Ken Fischer, to build something that gave him sort of the tone and the mojo of his vintage AC30. So the Z-Rec is really a derivative of an AC30. It's going for that sound. It's an EL84 based amps. It's an interesting thing. If I can find it, there's another video where Dr. Z talks about his source for his Russian tubes that he uses. It's pretty interesting, but it's kind of like he gets these tubes from Russia. And EL84 30-watt amp. It is paired to, we have the head and cab version, so you can get this as a combo as well. There's also a junior version available. But if you buy the head and the cab, it comes with a 212 cabinet with a Celestion Alnico Gold and a Celestion Alnico Blue paired together. Great sounding combo. All of it together it's a very loud amplifier. So if you get one of these, invest in like a Z-brake to attenuate it down. It's a single channel amp. It doesn't have reverb, doesn't have tremolo. It's designed to do one thing and to do one thing really well. Although it is single channel, you can get a lot of versatility out of it with its controls. So the control layout you get are a cut knob, which is gonna change the brightness level of the amp overall. You get bass and treble. So those three EQ controls are very interactive. Later in this video, we're gonna show you how they sort of interact together. I'll turn the knobs and Bradford's gonna play. That happens down the road in this video. And then you get volume. And as you turn it up, of course, the amp just gets more and more overdriven. It really does sound fantastic in sort of any configuration you have as far as like gain staging. It doesn't fall apart when you gain it up a lot, which is really cool. A lot of Voxes can kind of do that. And one of the strengths of this amp, in our opinion, though, is it is a beautiful pedal platform. You set it to where we're kind of getting it in this video, edge of breakup, clean tone, hit it with pedals. You'll hear it all throughout this video. It sounds awesome. One other thing about this amp, on the back of it, it has a switch called comfort and speed. It's a voltage setting, so it kind of changes the sag. It'll change the feel. Also kind of changes the clarity and headroom of the amp as well. So while it is simple, while it does the one thing really well, you can get a lot of different stuff out of it. It is a fantastic sounding amplifier. I feel lucky to be able to own one and share it with you. So in this section of the video, Bradford and I are going to kind of give you our personal thoughts on this amp. What kind of feelings does it make us feel? All right, we'll tell you that. Before we get into that, though...
I'm sure they're dying to know. How does it make you feel? I feel happy.
I feel good, yeah. Before we get into that, we want to go through sort of what the knobs do while Bradford is playing here. So we told you kind of the control layout you get, but... how does it sound when you crank it up? Turn the bass up, bass down, treble down. The cabinet is no longer with us in this room.
We couldn't do it anymore.
It is in the other room. It is so loud. It's in the room down the hall. The doors are closed. We can still hear it though. But the miking setup is exactly the same. So there's a little more cable running in the process, but it should sound pretty much like it did earlier.
We're still only using a short.
We're just running right into the front of the amp.
Some of you won't care, and I don't either. But there are others who will too.
People who will.
Yeah, so.
You're going to hear a little reverb that's added in post, courtesy of Universal Audio. Plate. What is it? The 160?
The EMT 140.
140. There it is.
Oh,
it sounds good. All right, this is about how we've had it set up for most of this video. Kind of our pedal platform, edge of breakup tone. Yep. Sounds real good with multiple guitars. Here it is. we haven't changed the gain at all, and I just kind of played with the EQ controls, and you heard some not so nice sounding things when you turn the treble all the way up. So these controls are interactive. Like when I turn that treble up, the bass came out of it too.
Yeah, that's actually typically what amps are. The knobs, they're not typically like adding highs. It's actually like cutting lows, or they're reverse. It's just not that it really matters. It does what it does, but it's interesting.
But what I hope you heard is, like we've said, this is sort of going after a vintage Vox AC30 sound. Now, those old AC30s, we have multiple channels: a normal channel, a brilliant channel, top boost, sometimes that kind of thing. So you can kind of emulate those. We made like a warmer sound that was still bright.
Yeah.
And then like a thinner sound that had more of that top boost, brilliant, chimey thing going on. So between these three controls, you can get a lot of flavors that all sound great. Yeah. More bass, less bass, more mids, less mids, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Shall we turn the gain up and see what happens?
We punch it.
So it sounds really good
when
you turn it up.
It gets mean.
And if you watch, so this is like a Brad Paisley thing. If you watch him demo it, I think he runs them pretty hot. And he uses he's old school. He uses the volume control on his guitar to clean up. So one thing I love about this amp is it sounds really good in like gained down like this. It sounds great. Gained up, it roars. It's awesome.
Yeah.
How do you feel, Bradford?
It sounds great. It does sound more like modern, and and I guess when we say the word modern, I think what we really mean is like just refined and like ruled, like tamed. Because when we started adding more gain, it didn't just kind of sound like this mess of incohesive gain and overdrive. The AC30, an actual AC30, still has like some tightness and keeps it together, but like this just sounds like a handmade boutique amp with some of the best builders and one of the best ears for tone and playing. You know, all three of those guys together. So it sounds like it's worth a lot of money. I'll say that.
It sounds expensive.
It does.
That's what you're trying to say.
That's exactly what I'm trying to say.
I would. Okay, we have and spoiler, we're going to show you how this compares to a vintage 1964 Vox AC30. It's coming. It's time stamped below if you want to jump there.
Yeah, if you can't wait.
All right. That AC30, that 64 AC30, I bought these like almost exactly at the same time, which is kind of funny. And they almost cost exactly the same amount, the vintage, but that vintage AC30 is beat up.
Yeah, it is beat up.
It sounds great though. That thing and my and the Korg era AC30/6 top boost. Those are way more difficult to dial in than this. I will say that.
Yep.
So this, it's like you turn them on, you put the knobs around noon, you get the gain about where you want it, and it sounds like it's the sound. Mm-hmm. Those AC30s are more difficult to get in the zone.
I would say the O2 Korg is easier than the...
It is.
The 64, I don't even touch.
It's a beast.
I don't even touch.
It's like a wild beast.
Yeah, you just got to memorize
But
controls.
once you get it tamed, once you get it where you want... Oh, man, it sounds amazing, which you're going to hear.
Yeah.
So, I think Dr. Z, like this thing, you can get all these different sort of shades of AC30 out of it, and they all sound great.
Yeah, you can you can dial knobs to make it sound like the normal channel of an AC30, which is just less chimey, like high-end stuff, and more like mid-chimey stuff. Yeah. So, you can dial that in.
This cut knob is where all that, the cut and the treble together, well, all three of them together, is where all that lives. So, one thing I'd like to say about this amp is the cabinet. So it has a matching cab that comes with it.
This one.
It's a 212 cab. It has a Celestion Alnico Gold and an Alnico Blue in it. So one of the things you will often hear people say, and we're going to say right now, this amp is really, really loud. And I think part of that just immense volume that comes out of it is due to that cabinet and the efficiency of those speakers. But it's a great sounding cab, and it pairs really well with this thing. I think, like, if you want the Vox sound, this is it.
Yeah, I think
Like
this
the
sounds...
vintage Vox sound.
Yeah, this sounds more like a vintage Vox than a O2 Vox sounds like a vintage Vox.
Right.
Which kind of, I don't know why that seems like, doesn't make sense to me, but it doesn't. But, they still sound like a Vox. But we're talking about, the reason this channel exists is because it's for our nerdy side to really come out.
Yeah.
I mean, it comes out in our main channel. But, like, we're talking, like, some differences that probably most people don't care about.
Yeah.
And we're like, these all three sound different.
Yeah.
So,
They really do.
here we go.
They really do. And this is one of my... I love Vox AC30 type amps, and this is, like, one of my favorites of all time. And it's unashamedly that sound.
Yeah. Said we're going to show you a comparison. We're not really looking to make the 64 Vox sound just like it. We probably could have spent all day and probably gotten pretty dang close. Maybe.
Yeah.
Like Brian said, like Brad Paisley said, that he had the 63 Vox that he didn't want to take with him.
Yeah.
And he found that one of Dr. Z's amps
gave him
what he wanted.
Yeah.
So we were like, well, we got a 64, and as we were saying, the O2 sounds so different.
Yeah.
So the chances of the 64 and our 64 and his 63 even sounding similar aren't that great either.
They're pretty bad.
Yeah. So we just wanted to give you an idea because they're just like, they're in the ballpark. We're not talking about like identical. We're talking like, oh yeah, we can hear that. So it's human, me playing both clips and
at different takes.
At different takes. But you're going to hear similarities, some clean neck tones, some driven bridge tones and stuff. We're using a set of Lambertones Ristrettos, which are like a fat Strat pickup. They're not really, they look like P90s, but they're not like the wiry P90 sound that I kind of accustomed to, or I kind of relate to a P90. But check this out, and your thoughts are your thoughts, or not. I mean, just want to show you. So check this out.
Again, thank you so much for watching. If you like this kind of content, we have a lot of amps in this room, and we're planning to make videos like this on many of those amps because we love them. Part of this is we kind of want to try and give you the experience of owning and playing through these amps. That's why we make all the presets and patches based on them. Yeah. But this is another component, like just to, you know, make it a piece of content celebrating how awesome this is. If you want one of these, we'll put links below to Dr. Z, and maybe if they're available. I know Sweetwater used to had one in stock not that long ago. So, yeah. Thanks for checking this out. Subscribe, hit the bell. We'll see you in the next one. Bye.